Unlock the doors of the universe with a single touch. Access everything from the depths of space to the technology of everyday life. Welcome to the world of Nikola Tesla. Behind these technological miracles we possess, thanks to great sacrifice, lies the childhood dreams of a solitary man. And when this man aimed to put the laws of nature at the service of humanity, he would completely change the course of world history. Are you ready to see one of the most extraordinary and interesting inventions in history? Here it is, before you, the Tesla coil. Everything started with it. The neon tubes and fluorescent lamps that illuminate our world bear its trace. But are these the only things? No. The first photos taken with X-rays, or the MRI technology used today, emerged thanks to this boundary-pushing invention. The name of that genius is Nikola Tesla. Tesla's biggest goal was to transmit electricity wirelessly, and the coil he designed for this purpose allowed the inventor to realize his dream locally. But some negativities would be the reason the story remained incomplete. But nothing was over yet. Tesla had no intention of giving up his passion, and the famous war of currents of the 19th century was about to begin. Nikola Tesla, the master of electricity, the lonely and great genius, widely opened the doors of the modern world for humanity. January 7th, 1943. When Nikola Tesla, after all the injustices done to him, passed away as a neglected and lonely man in his modest room at the New Yorker hotel, the world would have to wake up to a troubled morning. It was a period when the world wars reached their peak, and some documents related to Tesla's death ray, a war machine, emerged. Even its disappearance was enough to cause a deep shock to the USA. The possibility of such a powerful weapon of mass destruction falling into the hands of enemies, especially what happened to the Soviet Union, terrified the entire nation, including the president. The espionage file was closed, never to be opened again. So, what exactly happened? Did this great inventor who vowed to end wars and open the doors to a peaceful life for humanity stray from his path and invent a death machine? The answer to these and similar questions was hidden in the dreams of a small child with a genius talent that could change the world. Nikola Tesla was born on a night when a violent storm broke out in the town of Gospic, located on the slope of a hill within the borders of Croatia. His childhood passed enjoying the infinite beauty of nature in these heavenly gardens. The horse carrying his brother Daniel on its back suddenly reared up. And what happened? Later, Nikola would feel great guilt for his brother falling from the horse and dying, and the psychological devastation he experienced would leave irreparable wounds on his personality. His devout father wanted his young son Nikola to dedicate himself to God, and when the time came, to become a priest, beneficial to society. However, the little boy had other plans that no one knew about yet. Feeling responsible for his brother's death, Nikola sought a way to atone for his sins and believed the only way was to serve humanity. He began spending most of his time watching his mother, who could design small household appliances and craft perfect handicrafts with her loom, despite not knowing how to read or write. His mother would be a great source of inspiration for Tesla, who would completely change world history in the future. Nikola showed signs of having an extraordinary imagination from the very beginning. Throughout his childhood, filled with suffering, he began to suffer from a strange disorder in which images of objects he saw were accompanied by violent flashes. Day by day, the child began to isolate himself, eventually becoming a solitary person. Now, pigeons were the only friends of this lonely child, and when Nikola Tesla realized that he could not bring his brother back, no matter what he did, he decided to dedicate his life to the benefit and development of humanity. He increasingly began to dream about Niagara Falls. How could such powerful energy be made useful for humanity? If he designed a huge wheel, this problem could be solved very well. But nothing was over yet. This mysterious puzzle had many missing pieces, and he would have to wait a little longer to realize this dream. When he turned 17 and was preparing to go to theology school at his father's request, the fate of the world and Nikola's life would change forever when he contracted cholera and came face to face with death. The sudden mortal illness loomed over the family like a nightmare. Nikola promised he would recover and become the greatest inventor in history if he were allowed to become an engineer. His father would accept his beloved son's last wish and would be persuaded to send him to America, the land of dreams, the continent of Edison, the inventor of the light bulb. The year is 1877. Nikola turned 21 and set off for Graz, Austria, to complete his higher education. The moment he stepped into the new city, he encountered the irresistible pull of electrical science and was almost mesmerized by this magnificent power. Wishing to learn everything that existed, the first electric motors ran on direct current, but the elements needed to create rotation in the machine caused sparks. In one class, Nikola asked his professor for permission to speak and stated that generator and motor designs could be significantly improved by using alternating current. If this were possible, this invention could change the fate of industry. But there was a big problem. The professor's answer to his young student's inferences was harsh, and he began to humiliate him in front of his classmates. Nikola Tesla was truly humiliated by what his teacher said. He thought no one understood him, and that this small European city was not big enough to realize his dreams. Now, the right time had come. Nikola Tesla was eager to meet the great inventor who inspired him, the master of electricity, and he knew very well that one cannot discover new oceans without having the courage. Edison and Tesla would face off in a technology war of colossal proportions between alternating and direct current. Coming to America and meeting Thomas Edison was Nikola Tesla's greatest passion and his most desired dream. On his journey for this purpose, after a series of misfortunes and even surviving a riot where he nearly lost his life, he managed to set foot in the New World with a letter of reference from Edison's European business partner, Charles Batchelor, in his pocket. Finally, the miraculous moment arrived. Nikola Tesla was in the presence of the great genius. Edison looked into the eyes of this weak and timid young man before him. According to the letter, there were only two geniuses in the world. One of them was Edison himself, and the other was this young man, trembling like an aspen leaf, Nikola Tesla. When Tesla was accepted to work at the Edison Machine Works, the doors of the land of dreams would open wide, and the entire world would herald a new era. Thanks to Edison's work, New York City had electricity from the late 1870s until today. But because the problem of transmitting direct current over long distances could not be overcome, the great invention remained incomplete. And this was the problem Nikola Tesla had to solve. And if he performed this task properly, he would become the owner of a fortune of $50,000. Of course, if the promises given to him had been fully kept. Nikola Tesla worked day and night without stopping. Transmitting electricity over long distances with direct current was impossible. To solve this problem, he needed an alternating current motor that would step up and step down the voltage. But Edison had based all his work on the direct current system, and even the slightest word about alternating current was enough to anger him. After a year of work, all efforts would be in vain. And when Nikola completed his task, he would realize that he had been wronged. Moreover, Thomas Edison had not kept any of his promises to Nikola Tesla. preferring to mock his ideas and humiliate him. Nikola did not step out of his room for 7 years, and finally, he managed to develop the alternating current motor of his dreams. At the same time, this was also the invention of the New World, and this great news was enough to cause a sensation around the globe. When George Westinghouse, the famous millionaire of that period, paid $1 million to become Nikola Tesla's partner, he must have greatly angered his lurking enemy. Of course, Thomas Edison was behind the smear campaigns about alternating current that erupted in the media. Fierce protests were organized, and animals were cruelly electrocuted to death as he proclaimed electricity was dangerous to the public. As the smear campaign snowballed and began to affect millions of people, an unforgettable decision was made at Auburn Prison in New York. From that day on, prisoners sentenced to death would be executed by electrocution with alternating current. The traces of the execution would not be erased from minds for a long time, but this did not stop Nikola Tesla. On the contrary, it pushed him further. His works, the two enemies would confront each other at the opening of the Columbian Exposition in Chicago, and the course of world history would change forever with the definitive beginning of the War of Currents. The Westinghouse Company won the bid for the exposition's opening. For Nikola Tesla, this represented a great challenge against his rival Edison and gave him the opportunity to rewrite history with his dreams. If the system he designed managed to work on a large scale, Nikola would have already won this game. Hundreds of thousands of people filled the square, eagerly and excitedly waiting for the sun to set. And finally, the moment arrived, and darkness fell. U.S. President Grover Cleveland looked at the curious crowd surrounding him. Would the miracle really happen? Could light conquer darkness? As countless questions buzzed in everyone's minds, when the president pressed the button, the entire fairground lit up with dazzlingly colorful lights. This was the most incredible light show the world had ever seen. And finally, everyone had the opportunity to witness Nikola Tesla's genius. So, do you think the story ended like this? Of course not. Among the audience was Lord Kelvin, the president of the International Committee, who wanted to harness the power of Niagara Falls and generate energy, and he was speechless at the magnificent spectacle he witnessed. Now it was time for another great show. Nikola was about to realize his childhood dream. Could the power of Niagara be enough to illuminate enormous cities? He was the only one who believed in this idea from the beginning. Nikola Tesla, the system he designed, would work perfectly, and the age of electricity would begin. The genius, who aimed to put the laws of nature at the service of humanity, kept his childhood promise. He was now the master of electricity and lightning. But there was a big problem. The ghosts of the past never stopped haunting Nikola in any way. When he woke up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, he would realize that his feelings, which had taken hold of his soul, were not wrong. All his work, to which he had dedicated his life, had fallen victim to a treacherous intrigue. For the first time in his life, Nikola realized that the feeling of hatred could lead to such great dangers. He stared helplessly at his laboratory, which was being destroyed before his eyes. One of the players had cheated to win the game, and unfortunately, the curtain had closed. When Nikola Tesla lost everything he owned, he ran to his friends who had never left his side. This endless war had exhausted him. Humanity had lost its innocence a very long time ago. He was shaken by the radio works developed by the Italian inventor Marconi, inspired by Tesla's projects. When this news was conveyed to Nikola, he responded with a bitter smile. People did not want to understand, at least not for once, and no matter what he did, the result would never change. After his losses, the genius, who had withdrawn for a while, one day appeared in Madison Square Park. He wanted to put people like the Italian Marconi and Thomas Edison in their place. On that sunny afternoon, the world would witness the miracle created by electric current. Nikola's remote control worked. The boat on the water moved. illuminating its surroundings, and the gathered crowd once again could not hide their astonishment. But the party was just beginning. Nikola Tesla planned to build a lightning station outside the city to discover wireless electric current, his dream project. When his financier considered the cost of such an investment, he wanted to withdraw from this project. But to persuade him, Tesla announced that he was waiving the copyrights to his inventions, which are worth trillions of dollars today. An unprecedentedly colossal Tesla coil was designed, and on a night when the sky was covered with clouds, the surroundings would be engulfed in a lightning storm. The experiment caused explosions and fires in the energy generators of the nearby town. When their homes were plunged into darkness, the townspeople panicked and began to fear this mysterious stranger. Nikola Tesla believed that the world wars would end with international communication and interaction. Therefore, he wanted to build Wardenclyffe Tower, his dream tower, which he thought could provide wireless energy transmission and aimed to raise the bar even higher. If he had succeeded, world peace would have been inevitable. But despite all his efforts and struggles, people would begin to think he had gone mad and lost control. He worked day and night without stopping. There were always small deviations in his calculations. Morgan, the project's financier, began to get angry, and Nikola faced the most difficult test of his life. The Tower of Dreams would be the turning point of his life. Every minute of his life, Nikola Tesla tried to solve the mysteries of nature, but failed to save it. Because of the envy he felt towards the creature called human, Nikola Tesla's life played a great game on him. The lonely and great genius, the person who dedicated all his wealth to the service of the public, had reached the end of the road. The masked people of the glorious and glittering world ignored him and long ago forgot what he had done. He refused to share the Nobel Prize with his archenemy and decided to reject the temporary blessings of the New World. He designed the modern world, the age of communication and information we are in today. But ironically, the only thing he received at the end of the day was the Edison medal. Nikola Tesla was now left with bank loans. He locked himself in his hotel room and embarked on mental journeys. The year is 1943. During the espionage investigation in Nikola Tesla's room, the FBI found no documents about the mass destruction weapon called the Death Ray, because he had dedicated his life to a life where people could live calmly and peacefully. Nikola Tesla passed away at the age of 87 in his modest room at the New Yorker Hotel. He died in poverty, but was one of the most beneficial and successful scientists the world has ever known. So, what would have happened if Nikola Tesla had not pursued his childhood dreams and opened the doors to the new world? What kind of world would we live in? If we remove his efforts and approximately 600 inventions from our modern world, what would remain? If today the wheels of industry are turning all over the world, if our electric trains and cars are moving incessantly, if our cities and homes are shining brightly, and if the flow of information is circling our world starting from the depths of space, all these designs bear his signature, Nikola Tesla.